Hi guys, let's talk about problem definition in marketing. So managers actually they grasp the general nature of the objective they want to achieve, but a lot of times they remain uncertain about the full details of the problem. And this is the nature of a marketing problem, which is a challenge to a lot of companies because there's so much ambiguity, there's so much uncertainties, and again, as a managers and also as a researcher, you need to actually clear up all these uncertainties before making a formal statement of the marketing problem. You really have to know what is actually the problem that we are dealing with now. So an example of this case, and again, this is the importance of proper problem definition. The right answer to the wrong question may be worthless or even harmful. A case example is Coke. Back then, there was a competition between Coke and Pepsi. So as a response, Coke create a new product called New Coke, and then in removing and changing everything, the brand, the taste of a Coke because they wanted to compete with Pepsi. But again, it creates such a backlash, a lot of protests, a lot of anger from consumer because Coke actually did not realize that there are so much attachment from consumer to the Coke, so they cannot create just removing or eliminating the Coke. So this is why understanding what is actually a problem that you are facing as a manager. And then as a result, Coke, I think within 6 months, they bring back the old Coke. So a problem definition, this actually indicates a specific marketing decision to be clarified or problem to be solved. And again, the key is really you have specific marketing decision, and again, specify a research question to be answered and the objective of the research. And this involves several interrelated steps. Let's start. So these are some of the process of problem definition. The first, you have to ascertain the decision maker objective and then understand the background of the problem, and then isolate and identify the problem, not the symptoms. And again, look at the unit of analysis, then move on to determine the relevant variables, and the last one, state the research question and the research objective. Let's start with the first one. Ascertain the decision maker's objective. Researcher, you must attempt to satisfy decision maker's objective. And again, your goal should be expressed in measurable terms. What is actually the goals of the relevant stakeholders? If you look at the marketing problem, we can use the iceberg principle. And this is the idea that the dangerous part of many marketing problem is actually neither visible or to nor understood by marketing managers. What we've seen, and this is pretty dangerous. If you can see this, a lot of the problem is actually just looking at the symptom, at the tip of the iceberg, which is not the real problem. Portion of problem that is readily seen, and again, a lot of marketing managers they only see the symptoms, and again, symptoms are likely to be the focal areas when defining the problem. But many times, portion of the problem that is mostly unseen, likely the result in inadequate problem definition if omitted. Why do people shift? For example, if you remember Nokia phone, why do people shift from a particular brand to iPhone brand to Samsung brand? And if you don't really know the actual problem, what you've seen, you probably just seen the symptom. And you got to look and understand the background of the problem using your judgment, and we can use situational analysis And again, we look at informal gathering of background information to familiarize you as a researchers or managers with decision area. For example, let me give you an example. And again, you have to isolate and identify the problem, not the symptom. And again, it's important as a manager to isolate and identify the problem, not just the symptom. And again, problem and symptoms can be very confusing and may only be, symptoms of a deeper problem. Let's look at this example. For example, the first example, the organization, 20 years old local swimming association in a major city. The symptom that a lot of people see or managers see is the membership has been declining for years. New water parks with wave pools and water slides moved into town a few years ago. So, and again, based on the symptom, you create a problem definition. Local residents prefer the more expensive water park and have a negative image of swimming pool. If you haven't looked deeper, the true problem is actually demographic changes. There's a shift. Children in this 20 years old local area have grown up, and older residents no longer swim. So this is actually the true problem is demographic shift. Instead of thinking that there's a new water park, but again, if you've seen, actually, the problem that there's a shift in the demographic. So the swimming association can do differently. They can create a new swimming pool to target this demographic instead of just closing down and assume that the decline in the membership because of the new water park. So another example, the boutique brewery, and again, the symptoms, consumers prefer the taste of competitors' brand, and then the problem definition based on symptom, what type of reformulated taste is needed because you want it to match the competitors. And this is exactly what happened with Coke. Coke actually changed the taste to match sort of Pepsi's sweet taste, and that's actually not the problem. The true problem is the package. Actually, old-fashioned package influences taste perception. And again, there's a lot of examples, but you got to think you have to be able to separate the symptom and the true problem. One, you do that, and then you can look at the unit of analysis. Are you analyzing individuals? Are you analyzing household? Are you analyzing a particular organization? And again, problems may be investigated at more than one level of analysis. If you wanted to explore, for example, perception toward housing, and you got to look at individual, you got to look at, as a family, why do people move to a particular neighborhood? So, and again, you got to look what is actually the real unit of analysis. So the next is you need to determine the relevant variables. A variable is anything that varies in value. For example, attitude to an airline, maybe variable ranging from positive to negative. And then you wanted to look at, is it categorical, gender, male or female, or Queenslander, non-Queenslander, local student, international student. So are you actually using this category, or are you using continuous variables? For example, infinite number of value, such as age. And again, in the research, we use a lot what we call dependent variables and independent variables, and we'll talk a bit more later. But dependent variables is variable that is to be predicted or explained. And independent variables is variable that is expected to influence the dependent variables. Maybe this example will help you clarify what is dependent and independent variables. So using a fishbone, we can actually look at the relevant variables. And again, this diagram illustrates the most important dependent variables, which is the ribs, that influencing the dependent variable, which is head. Let's say you wanted to explore, you work for a Qantas, or you work for Jetstar, or you work for a particular airline. Let's say you wanted to know what factors, what variables actually influence perception toward airline service quality. Let's say, so the airline service quality is the dependent variables, and the independent variables are customer expectations. Customer moods also affect perception toward quality. Price discount versus standard fare. Also actual performance, past and present. Demographic, purpose of flight. So all these factors actually will eventually affect airline service quality. So as I mentioned, let's say, for example, you found that actual performance, past and present, actually affects perception toward service quality. Therefore, as a manager, you really need to focus. Reduce the baggage loss. Reduce. Make sure that the on time flight, all the flight are on time. So because we found that all the actual performances of airline affects the service quality. So once we understand these one, that helps us understand what is the problem that we are trying to investigate. Once you do that, and then now we can state the research question and the research objective. So this is the written statement of research question and research objective that really clarifies any ambiguity and what the research hope to accomplish. Clarity is important in research because we cannot measure everything. We have to be very clear and specific on what we are trying to measure. Research question and hypothesis actually add clarity to the statement of the marketing problem. For example, using the Facebook example that we use, we wanted to, one of the research question to explore the effect of past experience on airline service quality. So very clear, you wanted to measure the effect of the past performances on their perception toward airline service quality. So you're not measuring the effect of price, you're not measuring about the effect of competitors, you're measuring specifically on past performances. And using research question and hypothesis really helps clarify the marketing problem that you want to investigate. So that's why a lot of research we use hypothesis. Hypothesis is unproven proposition or a possible solution to a problem. For example, in hypothesis, if consumer attitude toward a product change in a positive direction, consumption of the product will increase. So this is your hypothesis. You hypothesize that if consumer attitude toward a product change in a positive direction, consumption of the product will increase. And again, hypothesis should provide information that will be useful in decision making. And the next one is really the research objective is the researcher version of the marketing problem. So, right, remember the beginning that you have to look at the nature, the importance of, you have to look at really the problem, not just the symptom. Now, once you went through, you've determined the unit of analysis, you determined the relevant variables. Now you can start looking at the objective. So the objective is basically your version of the marketing problem. This is explain the purpose of the research, to find standard, what the research should accomplish, and influences the decision about the research design. For example, this is the marketing management problem. The first line, should the retail chain store offer in-home shopping via the internet? So the research questions are consumers aware of internet home shopping systems? What are consumers' reaction to internet shopping? So from this question, what is actually the objective? You can clarify. So based on those questions, the objectives are determine the consumer awareness with aided recall. And then number 2, to measure consumers' attitude and belief about home shopping system. For example, the marketing problem that you wanted to investigate, the last line, what pricing strategy should we follow? Again, the research question, how much do prospective customer think the service will cost? Do prospective customer think this product will be priced higher or lower than competitive offering? Is the product perceived as a good value? So the research objective are to ascertain consumers' knowledge and expectation about prices, to learn how price of this service is perceived relative to competitors' pricing, and I'm going to learn how to determine the perceived value of the service. So now you can start seeing the flow of a process of a problem definition, right? So this is and again, this is a figure to help you create an effective and appropriate problem definition. This is the statement of a marketing problem. Influence the research objective, which become the basis for the research. Right. You start with the statement of marketing problem, and then goes to a broad research objective, and then you specify objective 1, objective 2, objective 3, and then you go on the research design, and then you go on the result. So let me give you an example of having the importance of having a good problem definition. So this is a case of V8 juice. You've probably seen this in the supermarket. You probably drink this one as well. So initially, V8 was sold as an alternative to refreshing drink. So the competition is like apple juice, soft drink, and Gatorade. But again, as a result, no one preferred V8 compared to other products. So the managers, the company, trying to figure out what is happening, why nobody is actually not drinking this one. They wanted to separate the symptom. Is it because doesn't taste good? Is it because of the price? The price? And again, think about, what do you think of V8 drink? So the managers went back and then have a discussion. They look at what is actually the real problem, and they found a niche. So through market research, as segmentation and having a clear problem definition, they found there's a huge market for providing vegetable nutrients. And again, remember that most of us, when you were young, promised our mother when we left home that we would eat vegetable in order to maintain our health. But again, eating vegetable is a lot of work. Peeling, slicing, cubing, and so on. So customer is looking for convenience. I could drink V8 and get all the nutrition. And again, they reposition the products, from having a clear problem, separating the symptom with the true problem. They reposition and focus on how the drink provided the required daily vegetable serving. So they're not competing anymore with the apple juice and other sort of sweet drink. And then V8 sales quadrupled within a year. So this is an example of having a clear problem marketing problem. So once you able to sort the symptom, identifying the real and relevant variables, that would clarify and reduce and remove all the ambiguity and produce a nice and excellent result for your company and for your research. Thank you.